69%. That's the share of Google searches in 2025 that end without a single click to another website. You type a question, Google answers it. You never leave Google. Now think about what that means for the websites that actually supplied that answer. The blogs, the forums, the independent publishers who wrote the thing Google just summarized. They got the work. Google got the visit. That's not a bug. That's the architecture. And it's one piece of a much larger story about what's quietly happened to the internet over the last 15 years. Because here's the thing, the internet is not shrinking by any technical measure. There are more pages, more users, more data moving through more cables than at any point in history. Over 6 billion people are online right now, but most of them are cycling through the same 5 or 6 apps. And that gap between how big the internet is and how small it feels to actually use it, that's what this video is about. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to what the early web actually looked like. In 2010, there were roughly 153 million blogs online. Independent forums covered every niche imaginable. Hobbyist communities built their own websites. If you're into vintage audio equipment or competitive orchid growing, or obscure 1970s science fiction, there was probably a dedicated forum for it, run by someone who cared deeply enough to maintain a server. And the way you found all of it was through a system that's basically invisible now: RSS. RSS feeds let you subscribe directly to a website. No algorithm, no platform. You chose what you wanted to read, and it showed up. Around 7% of American internet users were doing this weekly by 2010. That number sounds small, but the behavior it represented was enormous. People were building their own information ecosystems, curated by human judgment, not by engagement metrics. Then, in July 2013, Google shut down Google Reader. It was framed as a minor product decision, a low-usage tool being quietly retired. But Google Reader wasn't just a product, it was infrastructure. It was the thing that made independent web browsing feel effortless for millions of people. When it went away, direct subscription culture started to collapse, and the habit of navigating to independent sites slowly got replaced by the habit of refreshing a feed. Someone else's feed. Here's what was happening underneath that. The major platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, were all reaching the point where they had enough users to become destinations in themselves. Not tools you used to find the web. The web, as far as most users were concerned. And once a platform becomes a destination, the economic logic shifts completely. Cory Doctorow described this pattern in a framework he calls enshittification. The idea is straightforward. Platforms start by being genuinely useful. They attract users, then creators, then businesses. But once they've locked in enough of those users, the incentive to keep improving the product disappears. The users can't leave. The creators depend on the audience. The businesses have no alternative reach. So the platform stops optimizing for the user and starts optimizing for extraction. What does that look like in practice? Facebook once gave pages free organic reach. Then it throttled it. Then it made reach something you pay for. The audience that creators and businesses spent years building inside Facebook's garden became an audience they could only access by renting it back. X, formerly Twitter, followed a similar path. API access that once powered third-party apps and independent tools got locked down or priced out. Moderation priorities shifted. The timeline became less about who you followed and more about what the algorithm decided would keep you scrolling. The pattern repeats because the incentive structure is the same everywhere. Build a garden. Attract people inside. Once they're dependent, start charging rent. Now layer Google on top of this. Google's original business was sending people to other websites. That was the value proposition. You search, you find, you go. But over time, Google built products that could answer your question before you ever left Google. maps, knowledge panels, featured snippets, the people also ask boxes, and most recently, AI overviews, which generate a direct answer at the top of the results page, synthesized from the content of websites that never consented to be summarized. This is where the 69% number becomes significant. Most searches don't send traffic anywhere anymore. The sites providing the information get impressions, they get scraped, they don't get visits. For large media companies and major brands, this is an inconvenience. For small, independent publishers, it's a structural threat to existence. An independent blog running on ad revenue needs visitors. Visitors come from search. If search increasingly answers questions without generating clicks, that revenue model collapses. The writer either moves to a platform with a built-in audience, meaning they rent their reach from Substack or YouTube or Patreon, or they stop writing. Either way, the independent web gets smaller. There's one more layer to this, and it's the most disorienting part. As independent websites disappear and platform-generated content fills the gap, AI models trained on web data start ingesting more and more AI-generated content. Not original research, not human expertise. Synthetic text produced at scale for SEO, for engagement, for volume. Researchers call the downstream effect of this model collapse. Each generation of AI trained on previous AI outputs loses a little more nuance, amplifies a few more errors, drifts slightly further from the messy, specific, irreducible texture of reality. Some researchers have started calling this the Habsburg problem. The Habsburg dynasty famously inbred across generations to preserve power, and the genetic narrowing eventually produced rulers with serious cognitive and physical limitations. The metaphor is dark, but the logic is clean. Train models on synthetic outputs of other models, and the system slowly folds in on itself. The irony is sharp. AI was supposed to make the web smarter. But if the data pool it learns from keeps getting shallower and more synthetic, it may end up automating the web's degradation instead. So here's where we actually are. The internet is technically larger than it has ever been. More users, more content, more infrastructure. None of that is false. But the experience of the internet has been radically centralized. The number of places most people actually go has contracted sharply. The tools that once allowed independent sites to find audiences, search traffic, RSS subscriptions, open discovery, have been systematically replaced by algorithmic funnels that favor scale, engagement, and advertiser safety. The old web was built on ownership. You had a domain. You had an audience that subscribed to you directly. Your archives were yours. Your community rules were yours. The new web is built on dependency. You rent your reach from TikTok. You rent your audience from Substack. You rent your visibility from Google. And the terms of that rental can change at any time. Because the landlord has no real competition. Most people didn't notice this transition because it happened gradually and because each step felt like an upgrade. Better recommendations, faster answers, more convenient everything. But convenience and independence are not the same thing. The web got bigger, the doors got fewer. And the people who own the doors are not the people who built the internet you thought you were using. That's not a technical failure. It's an economic one. And unless the incentive structure changes, the garden keeps getting more walled.